Hello everyone, and welcome to hell. Welcome to Socks just wanted to do a funny little video idea, but no, God himself was outside my house and beat me to a pulp and turned off my recording halfway through. Just kidding, he didn't turn it off halfway through, I just never started it. So... Oh, wonderful introduction. But anyways, about a week ago, I asked my Discord server to give me some item ideas for their item ideas for Risk of Rain 2. So I'm going to... The plan was to blind react to them, but I've already seen these. I didn't notice I wasn't recording until the end, and I am recording now. I can see that blue button. It better stay that way. It's gonna turn off halfway just to gaslight me or something, but anyways... Here we go. We're just gonna go right in. No girl voice because I just did an hour of that and I'm too tired to keep it up, and you can probably hear that my voice is almost shot already. So we're just gonna get into it, go as quick as possible, bang out these items, and so basically the plan on here is I told the viewers to give me their items and prioritize creativity over balance. So I'm gonna read these, understand the idea behind them, and then I'm going to give my ideas for balance on them. But otherwise, they're pretty cool. But I already know what they are, so I'm not going to be able to be surprised by anything, which is unfortunate. Anyways, first item, Indulgence. Rarity is the equipment, and what it does, it casts down a single target beam of light from the heavens, which is a hilarious phrasing, that deals fluctuating damage depending on how much HP you have. The maximum damage is 3000% base damage at 100% max health, and the minimum damage is 300% base damage at 10% max health or below. The damage decreases by a tenth for each 10% max health you lose, and the beam also has a 25% chance to inflict burning if you are at 50% max health or higher. Cooldown of 20 seconds. So my only change to this is to flip the health requirements, so it does more damage the lower health you are, and the higher and less damage the higher health you are. So because with a cooldown of 20 seconds, this is very strong. This is very, very strong. 3000% base damage is a little ridiculous, especially if it can proc things. So yeah, I like it, but I think if it's switched, I think it would be more fun. The next one is the Squeaky Hammer, which is very funny. It's a Lunar that says attacks now knock back everything, plus 12% per stack. I don't know what that's in reference to, but alright. 10% plus 5% per stack, chance to play a squeaky noise, which is funny. And so this is a good idea. I do think that it needs to be a little more clear on what everything means, because other than that, if it's just like, if it's everything, that implies that it knocks back your allies as well, but enemies and your allies. I don't know what the 12% stack, I imagine that's just like the amount of force it puts behind them, but I imagine that's what it is. And then 10% chance to play a squeaky noise. I think every item should have something funny like that. That should be great. They should add that during April Fools. The next item is Dictamnus albus. Crazy name. It's a void uncommon, and it releases a poisonous nova during the teleporter event, damages all nearby enemies for 25% of their health, occurs 1 + 1 per stack times, corrupts all lepton daisies, and it stacks linearly. And because it stacks linearly, unless I'm forgetting how it works, if it stacks linearly, that's a little insane, because you would only need 4 to guarantee a kill on an enemy that stayed in the teleporter radius the whole time. So if you had 100 within those first 4% of the teleporter event, you would instantly kill everything inside. So I think it should be, I think it should be hyperbolically to like lower than it should be hyperbolically, like it shouldn't be able to kill, so you still have to do some work, but I don't know, this is very strong for an uncommon, though I do like the idea in its base. Like, I think a corrupted lepton daisy should do damage in the teleporter radius. That makes sense to me, at least. The next item is the Corrupted Mind. It is a void legendary, and it increases damage, probably base damage, by 1% for each void variant item you have. Stacks linearly. So Probably a little too weak if it's increasing base damage. If it's increasing your total damage, that's a little insane. That's very strong. But if it's only base damage for 1% per each void variant you have, you're not gonna have that many, you know? And it depends on what you have. Like, if you've got like a ton of Wunguses, this could be good, but I doubt you're gonna get that money in a run. The next one is the Charged Prism. Can't read. You'll see that in this video. I just straight up can't read. I just can't. It is a void common, and it decreases. Sorry, I did this too in the first recording. I read that wrong again. Anyways, it increases damage by 20% plus 20% per stack when enemies are at least 13 meters away from you, and it corrupts all focus crystals. So, just the opposite of what the focus crystal does, and I like it. There is a modded item that does this exact thing, and is pretty cool. I like it. It's a little obvious as a first stepping off point from the focus crystal as a void version, but I don't know, it's still pretty good. They put in another item called the Electric Chair, which is a legendary, and it says, have a 10% plus 5% each stack to cause an enemy to become electrically paralyzed, new debuff, for 6 seconds plus 1 per stack. Every 3 seconds, lightning bolt to hit an enemy, and a 10% chance for the enemy bolted to become electrically paralyzed. So they worded this a little poorly. I think they meant to have a damage thing in here somewhere, but they didn't. But I do like the idea that it can sort of spread itself, like infect other enemies with that 10% chance to, you know, other enemies to become bolted as well, or to become paralyzed as well. So I like it. I just think it needs to be, you know, worded better, because I don't really understand it fully right now. It's still pretty good. I still like that item. The next item is called Deceiving Comprehension. It is a lunar, and it doubles your XP gain through all possible sources and double the bonuses to your stats gained from a level up. However, enemies gain 15% damage, attack speed, health, and armor permanently for each level you gain while holding this item. It's a little ridiculous, and it does not return the stats of enemies if you somehow get rid of this item, such as cleansing it. So, you know, pretty scary. But with double XP gain and as well as double bonuses when you level up is pretty crazy. That's a little insane. That's effectively quadruple speed leveling, but the negative, not so bad in damage. 15% damage increase for enemies is not that scary. Attack speed is a little scary, but not that bad. 15% isn't that much. Health is a little scary, but really not that bad. And then armor is terrifying. Oh my god. 15% increased armor is a lot. That can be potentially a ton. So, you know, a little scary, a little terrifying, a little scary, whatever. I think all Lunars should be like this, where they're like, where I go, yikes, that's pretty cool though, you know? Like, that's really scary, but I love it, you know? I like that a lot. The next item is the Abnormality Relocator. I swear you guys just chose the biggest words you could find to make it harder for me to read, but I get it. The rarity is red, and every time you inflict a damage over time debuff, fire, bleed, poison, your active skill cooldowns are reduced by 0.5 plus 0.5 per stack seconds. And they clarify that it's not if one stack of burn won't give you more than one proc of this minus 0.5 per stack seconds on your cooldowns. It's every new stack of burn that you apply. So this would be very, very, very strong with bleed and high attack speed, since you'd basically be able to get your cooldowns back on command just by holding left click on an enemy. And I like that. That's really cool. Lowering your cooldowns by applying debuffs, that's a new one. I like it. That's pretty cool. The next item is the Perfected Leg. It's a lunar, and it's sacrifice 20% of your overall damage for 40% overall speed and 20% jump height. I really like that. Basically, you just lose damage for speed and jump height. I do think there's a problem, though. I do think that 20% damage is a little low, because you could just supplement that with, like, watches and stuff, and you'd probably be able to get rid of it, so I don't know if I like that, but it's still pretty cool. You know, and it also, they say it would stack exponentially, so scary. It also buffs your movement items. Example, if you have 500% increased speed with movement items, picking it up will increase it to 700%. Crazy, but I like it. Intriguing. It's an interesting, you know, combination there. The next item is the Heart of the Arch-Lich. And not only are you guys choosing big words to trip me up, you're also straight up making tongue twisters. It's crazy. The rarity is red, and when killing an enemy, there is a 30% plus 10% per stack chance to cause an explosion that deals 250% plus 100% per stack damage that either fears or roots every enemy in a 60 plus 10 per stack meter radius, and it stacks linearly. So when I read this out for the first time, it sounded really, really strong. I do think that a base of 60 meters on that explosion, because it's a guaranteed thing, there's no chance on kill, it's just gonna happen, is a little ridiculous, but still. Or sorry, it is not, it is a chance. I can't read. It is a chance. It's 30% chance, but still a lot. That's 250% plus 100% per stack damage is not a lot, so I guess 60 meters isn't that bad, but it's still like, that is the area damage to defeat all dare. Area damage, especially if it can proc, so very strong, but I mean, it's a red, so it should be. The next one is the Gup plush. The item rarity is a Lunar, and it's 50% chance plus 10% per stack to increase gold on kill by 100% plus 25% per stack, but 50% chance plus 10% per stack for an enemy to split into 2 geeps on death. So you can either double your money and then increase that higher. You have a 50% chance to do that, but you also have a 50% chance to split an enemy into 2 geeps. So I think that's a little too weak. I think it should be 2 gups to really scare you. They explained in their thought process that they thought that that would be too much, but I mean, like, think about some of the other Lunar items, how, like, they're ridiculous in their punishments, so, you know, I think the 2 geeps is probably not enough. That's honestly just going to give you more money, because geeps are not a threat to you, really, at all, unless you play very, very poorly, so I wouldn't have to worry about them. I think either that, or it could be like a guaranteed thing instead of a chance. Like, you have a 50% or 50% chance to double your money, but every enemy you kill splits into 2 geeps. That would be interesting. I like that. But anyways, the next item is the Fragile Spiral, which corrupts all of your red whips. The description is you gain plus 40% plus 30% per stack movement speed. This item breaks if you drop below 25% health. If you have a power elixir, that takes priority, and this does not break. So, cool, probably too strong. Their thought process says that they'd like to have more void movement speed options, and I'd also breakable void item, but the way they said this is, which upon breaking you can pick up an uncorrupted version of it later and keep that uncorrupted version. And while yes, I agree that sounds interesting, that also kind of defeats the point of void items. The whole point is you're supposed to sacrifice getting, like, all ukuleles in the future for, you know, for this new item, which it's usually worth it in the case of Polyloot, but sometimes it's like, oh no, I really wish I could get Bungus, you know? Oh no. But, still, I don't know, it sort of defeats the point, because what you could do is, if you did find a red whip and for some reason wanted it, I don't judge, but, you know, if you wanted it, you could just, like, jump from a height, lose health down to 25% health, lose your item, you know, break it, and then just pick up the red whips again. And it's sort of just, you know, you could just very easily cheat it, and I think that's kind of lame. But I don't know, I like it. The next item is the Heretic's Fruit. It's a void legendary, and it corrupts the interstellar desk plant. Killing an enemy grows a sickness-inducing plant from their corpse. That plant drops a berry for every enemy you kill within a 45-meter radius around it, plus 5 meters per stack. Eating or picking them up, these berries damages you for 25% plus, or sorry, 15% plus 5% per stack. caps at 80% and it cannot kill you, but gives you a 50% increase to every stat, but also reduces your regeneration and overall healing by 25%. By 25%, doesn't increase with stacks, for 5 seconds. So to clarify, whenever you kill an enemy, which I feel like there should be like a cooldown on this, but it's fine. Whenever you kill an enemy, you put this plant on the ground, and that plant grows up, and in a 45-meter radius around that plant, every enemy you kill in that radius drops a berry. And if you eat the berry, you get 15% increase. Sorry, it hurts you for 15% of your health and reduces your regeneration and healing by 25%, but it also gives you a 50% increase to every stat, which I think is a little redundant on the healing part. I don't know if that reduces your healing and regeneration is worth it. You could have just put the damages in there, or because then it's more like a lunar item, you know? But still, I think it would be cool if you just removed that part, and it's great then, because it's a little redundant in that it increases your every stat, including your healing, by 50%, and then decreases your healing again by 25%. It's just a little strange, the wording of it. The next item is the Graviton Converter, and it's an uncommon, and it says 25% chance on hit to stack gravity on enemies. Enemies within 20 meters that have gravity are pulled to each other, crushing each enemy in contact with it, dealing 10% base damage plus 1% of its own maximum health per stack per second. Pull strength increases with stacks. So I do think that this should be, a little bit different, but I don't really know how to explain it. I do really like that it sort of rewards focusing a boss during a teleporter fight, because it'll deal with all of the other enemies around it, kind of, by pulling all of those enemies towards it, which assists with things like Gasoline and Will-o'-the-Wisp. So, interesting. I like it. I like the idea, and it could be funny to watch as well, just seeing those characters bounce around. Yeah, the next item is 3 items. The wording of this one tripped me up a lot, but now I know what they mean because I've read it already. But there are 3 items here, which are all sort of items that support your other items, if that makes sense, in ways that you wouldn't expect. The first ones is Unconscious Steps, which is a green item that counts how long you're standing still for, and then increases your standing still status that you have for 10% when you start, of the time you were standing still, when you start moving. So, for example, if you were standing still for 10 seconds with a bungus around you, and you started moving, that bungus circle would persist around you for 1 more second. So it's a pretty cool thing. Very niche, but still pretty cool. But it rewards your standing still items, and would probably be pretty strong when stacked a bunch. The next one is a red that reduces the time until you are out of combat by 20% hyperbolically. So it sort of just makes it so that you get your, like, Cautious Slug and Red Whip procs really, really quickly when you are, stop taking damage. And then their last one was a white item that makes it so that when you take damage, there is a 5% plus 5% hyperbolically chance to still be considered out of combat. So it can, like, refresh your, opals and your safer spaces and things like that. Well, safer spaces is timed, but still, you know what I mean. Your opals and things like that. It can keep them going without, just losing the effect entirely. All of which are, they clarify, all of which are useless by themselves, but they have great synergy with other items like bungus and oddly shaped opals. So I agree, it's interesting. I like the idea. I really like that. That's very cool. Of an item that basically buffs all of your other items, but doesn't really do anything itself. The next item is the Adaptive Energy Cell, and it is a uncommon. Its description is, upon taking damage, temporarily gain armor and barrier based on your lost health. The stats are, upon taking damage, gain 5 armor, plus 5 per stack, stacks linearly, and for 10 seconds, and temporary barrier equal to 50% of the health lost. Minimum 5% health lost. Subsequent hits stack the armor buff and refresh the duration, but does not refresh the barrier. I feel like it should do the other way around, if that makes sense. Like it should refresh the barrier, but not refresh the armor, because armor is very, very strong. But you know, it's still, I like it. You know, I like how it's I like this idea of an item that could like help you use your rolls of pennies better instead of you know, have it, because a lot of the items that force you to take damage to be used are kind of annoying. So this one would help you sort of use them on purpose, such as the roll of pennies. It would allow you to take damage without, you know, worrying about dying as much. The next item is Precursor's Heart. It is a boss item, and it's a 10% chance to apply Rot, which slowly damages and weakens the inflicted enemies. And they explain how they were thinking of making new designs for enemies, but don't know coding. Me neither. I get it. I really want to, but I don't want to. You know, I also don't want to learn that. And want to make a boss item that's sort of like a rotten mummy, which is pretty cool. So this debuff would come from that boss, or that item would come from that boss. And they didn't give specific stats for the slowly damages and weakens the inflicted enemies, but, you know, you get the idea. It's a pretty simple item, but still pretty fun. Oftentimes boss items are simple, but, you know, just fun. Like the Charged Perforator. Simple, but fun. Alright, I paused the recording because I needed to take a breather and needed my throat to, you know, stop being in pain. It still hurts, but we'll be fine. And I believe I left off on the Precursor's Heart one, but we'll be fine. I forgot, but I'm pretty sure we left off on that one. So the next one is called Patient Zero, and is legendary, and on kill, killed enemies spreads inflicted status effects at half size, I presume they meant half count, to 2 enemies, plus 1 per stack within 25 meters, plus 5 meters per stack. So whenever you kill an enemy, half of their debuffs gets moved to the nearest 2 enemies. And I like that. It's a cool little combo, and it can really, you know, snowball your, like, bleed builds and your fire builds and help with your area damage, so I really like that. The next one is the Powdered Glass Pouch, which is a Void legendary that corrupts the Happiest Mask. Upon killing an enemy, all enemies within 25 meters plus 25 meters per stack radius are inflicted with Shatter. Shatter makes attacks received deal... Oh my god. Shatter makes attacks received deal 2 times more damage exponentially. So if I shattered a Beetle Queen with double tap, and my base damage was 46, I deal 92 damage, then 184 damage, then 368 damage, and so on and so forth. The shatter lasts for 5 to 50 hits depending on the numerical amount of maximum HP that the target afflicted has. Wisp would only have 5 stacks of shatter, while the Voidling would get up to 50 stacks. So this is a good item, but I think there's a sort of a misunderstanding here of how strong doubling per stack of shatter would be. So, you know, it'd be ridiculous. 50 stacks is a lot. I mean, what's 1 to the power of 50? Like, that's already ridiculous. Sorry, 2 to the power of 50. That's already huge. I mean, we can do that. Let's find out. 2 to the power of 50 is already in the billions, so you'd be doing insane amounts of damage. You'd be doing ridiculous amounts of damage with this. So even with 5, like, I mean, what's 2 to the power of 5? It's still like, if you were doing 2 damage, it's 32 damage now per every single thing. That's still pretty high, so I like it a lot. It's interesting, but probably too strong. Probably too strong. Also, their thought process was funny. They were like, I wanted to make the Happiest Mask useful, and what better way than to make a Void item, which implies that the best way to fix the Happiest Mask is just by making a straight-up new item that gets rid of the Happiest Mask. So, it's pretty good. The next one is the Prophet's Eye. It's a legendary Void item, and it replaces the Laser Scope. The chances, this one I found really interesting, was the chance to land critical strikes, or your critical strike chance, is capped at 0.5% plus 0.5% per stack, but upon landing a critical strike, all combat items will proc unaffected by luck. There's a modded item called the 10 Commandments of Burial, which does this but better, where it procs everything every 10th hit you do on an enemy. Like a guaranteed proc of everything. So this could probably be buffed a little bit. I understand the want to lower it, and I do like the idea of a thing that caps your crit chance but makes your crit chance like really useful. But still, I think it's pretty cool. The next item is a white item that is called the Lump of Butter, which increases your movement speed by 30% plus 20% per stack. However, it makes you slide around like you're on ice all the time, which is very funny. There's a modded item that does something similar where it like doubles your movement speed but also decreases your deceleration and acceleration, so you have to like ramp up and also slow down instead of stopping on a dime and just going straight from 0 to 100 like you do in the game. So this is probably more like a lunar item than it is a white item, but I still like the idea. It's very cool. The next item is the Shattered Shards. It is a lunar equipment, and it's Whoa, hiccup, Jesus. Throw lunar shards using 75% max health and damaging all characters. You throw 12 lunar shards with a proc chance of 0.5 that hurt all characters that it hits. They don't give specific damage procs, but as you'll see, they better be pretty high. Activating it uses 75% of your max health. If below 75% max health, using this equipment will be lethal. It's really just not worth taking, but I like the idea of being able to use Mithrix's attack ability. I like that. It's just sort of, you don't really need it. Like, do you really need this instead of like one Royal Accelerator? Think about it. The next one is called the Awful Annihilator. It is a void legendary. All of your attacks implode in a 4 meter plus 2.5 meter per stack radius, drawing in enemies where you shot. You guys gotta get better at your spelling, Jesus. 4 meter plus 2.5 meter per stack radius, drawing in enemies to where you shot for a bonus 60% total damage on hit, corrupts all Brilliant Behemoths. So this is good, but I feel like it's a little bit too similar to the Brilliant Behemoth, the pre-existing one, so I don't know if it's really worth taking over it. It is probably nice because it also adds that like implosion thing where it moves them around, but it's basically just the Brilliant Behemoth, but it moves people. It does the same thing. It's not really the opposite, so but it's still pretty good. The next one is an equipment called the Curse of the Many. On use, lifesteal and HP you gain lifesteal and you weaken enemies per debuff they have. So you get +1 max HP drained per debuff, which caps at 5%, and then -20 armor per debuff on the enemy. And I think -20 armor per debuff might be a little strong because, oh boy, imagine hitting it, using it, and then hitting like a Beetle Queen with like 40 stacks of bleed, right? They would just die instantly because their armor just disappears. So this is basically just like a 40-second cooldown symbiotic scorpion, or a stack of 20 symbiotic scorpions, It's a little ridiculous. The next one is the Mobius Strip. For every item you have, gain 3% plus 1% per stack attack speed, damage, and crit damage, as well as 5% plus 2% per stack max health. And it also came with a achievement that you'd have to do to get it, called Rigged, and you have to defeat 7 enemies on one stage without being hit by them. This is interesting, probably too strong though for a green. Gaining 3% attack speed, damage, and crit damage, as well as 5% max health per item you have, is a little ridiculous. It might not sound like a lot, like 3%, you might be like, wow, that's really low, but think late game where you've got like 50 plus items, only one of these is going to be insane. And you can stack them. Yes, they don't stack as well as some other items, but it'd be pretty ridiculous. The next one is a lunar called Anguish. Every minute, a random item downgrades, and once they reach white tier, The items upon next downgrade get turned into anguish. They do not clarify what anguish means, so I assume it's a good thing, because if it was a bad thing, there would literally be zero reason to take this item because it would only nerf you. But assumedly anguish buffs you, right? Because then you would, you know, have a reason to actually have this. But it's basically like a reverse benthic bloom, which I find very interesting. The next one is the upgrade module, a red or legendary. And when applying a stacking negative effect, bleed, burning, collapse, whatever, to an enemy, apply 1 + 1 per stack of that effect to the enemy. This is OP as hell. It's basically just a flat doubling of your bleed procs and a flat doubling of your burn procs. It's ridiculous. I think if they made it to like a 30% chance to double this effect, that would be good. But because it's guaranteed, that's ridiculously overpowered and would basically just guarantee a god run with any amount of bleed and any amount of area damage. The next one is an uncommon called the Mole Myths, and when attacking an enemy while grounded, there is a 0.01% chance to gain a random item that follows the same math and percentage chance as the shipping request form, which is 79, 20%, 1% for uncommon, common, uncommon, and then legendary. And upon further stacks, you would get more rarity chances instead of more chance to get the item. So interesting. It would be a nice thing to have in the background. 0.01% chance, 1 in 1,000 is pretty... Sorry, 1 in 100 is pretty tough, but not terrible, I think. Wait, no, I can't do can't do math. 1 in 100 would be 1% chance. 0.1% chance would be 1 in 1,000. 0.01 would be 1 in 10,000 chance to get an item while attacking ungrounded. I guess because it's on attacking, that's fine, because you're going to be shooting enemies a lot, but if it was on kill, that would be terrifying. That would be terrible, because you don't even kill 10,000 enemies in a game sometimes. So, you know, it could probably be tweaked a little bit, but I like the idea. The next two items are from the same person, and they are legendaries that have void variants, so, you know, that's pretty cool. The first one is His Majesty's Eminence. It's a legendary, and it increases... I'm going to try to read this one out. I had a lot of trouble reading this one out flatly in the first video. Increases attack damage and speed, both by 30%, plus 10% per stack. Increases life, I presume they meant max HP, by 200 plus 50 per stack, flat HP. Including an additional 10% plus 5% of base HP. Adds an insanity meter. This meter passively builds over time, taking roughly 3 minutes to fully fill. Attacking enemies fills this meter. Once meter is charged, drain 20% insanity per second, increasing your attack speed, your attack damage and speed by 100% plus 50% per stack, and decreases your life, presumably max HP, by 100 plus 50%. So you have this flat buff, and over time, while attacking enemies, you fill this meter, and once that meter's charged, it drains quickly, but in that time, you lose a little bit of health, but you have double damage, attack speed, and movement speed. So, strange, but interesting. It seems very, very strong on its own, because you're increasing attack, damage, and speed by 30%. Anyways, its void version is the Forgotten Crown, and it increases damage. Oh my god, I can't read. Increases attack damage and speed, both by 60% plus 30% per stack, decreases life by 75 plus 50 per stack, adds a clarity meter. This meter passively builds over time, taking roughly 5 minutes to fully fill. Taking damage fills this meter. Once meter is charged, drain 10% clarity per second, decreasing your attack speed and damage by 100%, but it increases your defense, which I assume they meant armor, by 2,000 plus 500 per stack, and increases health by 750 plus 100% total health per stack. Really complicated, but so basically the reverse. You get this flat, buff, right? You get this flat buff, but you build this meter over time. And once that meter's filled, it drains quickly, but you gain a huge buff to defense, but a decrease to your damage. Basically, they do say decreasing attack speed and damage by 100%, which I believe implies that it's just go straight down to 0, if I know my math correctly, but I'm not really sure how that works. Anyways. The next one is by the same person. It's another pairing of a legendary and a void legendary. The first one, it's a lot simpler though. The first one is the 1,000-shot crossbow. Is a legendary that increases your attack speed by 400% plus 200% per stack, and reduces your move speed by 25% plus 25% per stack. And it is corrupted into the Doom Bow. The legendary, which is a legendary void, and the statistics are it increases attack damage by 2,000% plus 500% per stack, reduces attack speed by 100% plus 50% per stack. So, exactly what it sounds like. You do, the first one, you quadruple your attack speed, but you move slower, and the other one is you up your damage by 2,000%, which is ridiculous. That's 100 watches, and reduce your attack speed, and you half your attack speed basically, or you completely remove it. I believe if you reduce your attack speed by 100%, that just means you lose it all, which I think is a mistake in the wording of this, but I think they meant like half. I think they meant to half it. Anyways, let's move on. We got 3 items left. The first one of those 3 is the Artificial Gravity Generator. It's an equipment that stuns all flying enemies within 25 meters and pulls them to the ground for 10 seconds, cooldown of 50 seconds. And it's opposite the Artificial Gravity Inverter, which is an equipment as well, that stuns all grounded enemies within 15 meters to make them float in the air for 10 seconds and with a cooldown of 50 seconds. I forgot to breathe for the past minute. And they included their thought process here. A lot of people did, but I chose to ignore them a lot because it would make this recording take forever. I'm aware that my submissions were meant to be separate, however I felt that making this a pair of items are two sides of the same coin. That makes sense. The generator disables flying enemies for a while for all of your blind pests needs, and the inverter disables ground enemies for all of your holy cow, that's 15 imp overlords needs. The generator also has a larger flying range, as flying enemies tend to stay further away. I am aware balance wasn't the focus of this, but it's still something I felt should be accounted for, and it should. I do think the gravity inverter would be stronger just because there are much more grounded enemies than there are flying enemies, but it could still be useful. I don't know, I think this could be really fun and very useful. And then our last item, finally, is the Flower of Glass. It is a lunar, and it has a 10% chance to turn void items into pearls upon pickup. And I believe, upon pickup. It had a 1% chance for any of those pearls, or any times, and oh my god, I can't goddamn read. 10% chance to turn void items into pearls, 1% chance for radiant pearls instead. And it purifies your benthic blooms, which is intriguing. So it's like a void item for a void item. The way it stacks is every stack of item will purify an additional corrupted item and increases the chance for an irradiant pearl by 0.5%. And they say that the idea is basically a corrupted benthic bloom that turns your void items into pearls, like a cleansing pool that activates every stage. So yeah, intriguing. I like it. There should be a cleansing pool for void items in the game, basically, in case you really don't want them. But other than that, I think this is an interesting idea where it corrupts your void items and corrupts a void item in itself. So intriguing. Anyways, that's all for today. I'm recording. I can see that it's still blue. We're good. I hope this video comes out today. It should. But other than that, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Thank you to our members, the_Radiance Ree, Lucas Houston, Ori, Soap, Shadowchi, Supreme Fearow, and Natalie Cameron for supporting the channel like that. If you'd like to support the channel like they did, you are absolutely welcome to, but if you do not have the money nor want to spend it, that is totally okay. Other than that, I will see you later. Bye-bye. And sorry that my voice was dead this whole video. I said I was going to record it, so therefore I have to. Anyways, bye-bye.